Good morning, North Augusta Church. So, we're doing communion, and the bread comes, and I take the bread, and I'm sitting there, I kind of bow my head, and I close my eyes for a second, and I'm thinking all these, like, super deep thoughts about communion and society, and it's just this whole meditation, and Dana, like, pats me on the arm affectionately. I'm like, oh, that really seals it home. And then she pat me on the arm harder, and I thought, wow, she must think I missed that. She really wants me to know how. So I reached over and patted her back, and then I heard her go, Adam! And I opened my eyes, and there's a tray of grape juice right in front of my face. I'm not sure how long it was there. A while, according to my daughter, who's always honest. Um, so that was fun, and I lost all that, and it would have preached, but at that point, everything that I was thinking went, hopefully it'll come back to me. I don't know who set up the pews, but it feels like there is a great gulf between me and you. And it goes right with the nice cone that we create for the camera lens for the people who are watching from home, thinking, why is Adam talking to an empty room? There are actually people like here and here, and then a triangle of no people. So if you see that, Roger may pan the room. He's panning the room so people see that there are people. All right, thank you, thank you, thank you. We're on the second week of a series that I'm calling Unlocking Gratitude. It is about gratitude in the Bible and what that means for Christians. I had planned this for a while. I was actually back and forth. I speak on gratitude for 3 weeks around Thanksgiving, I would say frequently over the course of our time here, especially since I ran into the information that I did. I told you several years ago when I had a Thanksgiving sermon coming up and I thought, oh, I got to write a Thanksgiving sermon, and I started doing some research to have a Thanksgiving sermon, and I ran into this body of research called the science of gratitude. The science of gratitude, that field was founded by a guy named Dr. Robert Emmons. Dr. Robert Emmons is a psychology professor at the University of California, Berkeley, and he was invited to be a part of this conference that was basically on the human virtues. He drug his feet and called them. Basically, they were having each sort of psychology expert take one of those virtues and present all of the research that had been done on it. He called late, and he said he got gratitude because that was what was left. And then he went and started to look for the research that he was going to present, and he found that there wasn't any. It had not been done, ever. There was one study from the 1920s that had some side point that mentioned gratitude, but that was it. And so he actually develops the field. He actually does the research. And what he finds is absolutely fascinating. It's one of the few things that mostly when I'm up here pitching stuff to you, I'm like, I think you should try this, and I think that you'll be surprised. I suspect that you'll da-da-da-da. I have good reason to think. I do it that way because people are different and they're different experiences. But with this body of research, it's one of the few things that I say, this is guaranteed. Like, if you will do these practices, it will have a positive benefit in your life, and not just in the floaty, you'll feel better way in your head. There are measurable differences in how you interact with other people. There are measurable differences in your actual physical health and your ability to heal from things. It actually matters in terms of depression, and I mean it matters in terms of depression, not like it makes you a little happier. It changes your brain chemistry. And I talk about this stuff so much because it's one of those cases where I see psychology, the field of psychology, which I'll remind you I have a bachelor's degree in, actually starts catching up to some things that the Bible has been trying to tell us the whole time about being human. In addition to this, we are doing a 21-day gratitude challenge. We started it last Sunday. There are daily activities. Basically, you run through a series of 7 practices for 3 weeks. So 7 practices, the 7 practices, the 7 practices. If you didn't start last week, it doesn't matter. We picked 21 days because it takes about that long for human beings to establish habits. And that's when you'll start seeing some benefits immediately, but by that time you'll be convinced if you do it. So you can start, if you didn't start before, you can start now, do it for 21 days. But heck, if you do it for a week, you'll start to see benefits. I want to talk about it from a different angle. We talked about gratitude a lot last week. I want to talk about it from a different angle this morning. It's become standard for me to be wearing these reading glasses. I don't think people even think about it anymore if they thought about it at all before. But I do. Because while it is true that though I've used various different covers on my iPad before, you all know I preach from an iPad. And one of the benefits of that is I can go like this, and the text gets bigger. But you can't do that on like regular books and newspapers. I've tried. I opened this old book one time, and like I was trying to look for something in it that I knew was in there, just a passage to use in a sermon or something. I opened it up, a business card that I had used as a bookmark fell out, and the first legit thought in my head was, stupid pop-up ads. Then I felt like an idiot, but that really was my first thought. So, a few years ago, somebody had left, I think like my dad or somebody had left their reading glasses laying around. And just as a joke, as a part of some bit I was doing that I don't even remember, I threw them on just to, I don't know, like say something nerdy and smart or something. And when I did, instantly a headache that I had, low grade, went away, and I realized that I wasn't squinting my eyes, and I went, oh no. Because it occurred to me at that moment how much I was straining to do something that should have been easy and natural. And I didn't even know it. It was taking more and more effort, more and more strain, because my eyes, after you do this, after you put on these pair of glasses as a joke and they work, then you start doing research. And it was amazing to me how, again, most stuff you look up, it says, if you're having this trouble, this may help you. It says, if you're in your 40s and you didn't have vision problems in a certain direction, you will need reading glasses. It says will. It doesn't say might. It doesn't say probably. And so I made peace with it, and now I can see. And it's very helpful. I'll probably eventually go to an ophthalmologist, and they'll give me more expensive glasses. But insurance will help. It made such a difference. And here's the thing. On the front end, I did not know it. My story was not. I knew I was having trouble with my vision, and so I went from looking for a solution. No, it was literally a joke. A joke that I pulled off because I thought I obviously don't need glasses. But once they were on, there was no unseeing the clarity that I had seen. You understand what I'm saying? It's even more stark when I take them off. Now I can see you guys fine. But anything I tried to read up here, I can't. And I had to sort of accept that because that was sort of my new reality. And once I did, you do things, and it makes it where you're able to do that. You're able to see the world more clearly. This morning, I'm going to talk about what I'm going to call the lens of gratitude and how that functions in our lives and why it's really important and maybe critically important now. Because while you may not have a name for it, and while I didn't plan this series because of this, you know and I know that there is a lot of malaise out there kind of directly from the election and a series of elections. And there are people who have just been absolutely gut punched because what they wanted to happen, what they thought was going to happen, didn't. Unless you cast them off so easily, you need to understand that a large amount of those people, a lot of those people, had faith-based reasons why they were going into this. They might not have matched yours, but they did. Not everybody, but they did. A lot of them looked and saw the behavior of Christians for something that they thought they believed. For something they believed in. But the way that they behaved that parted ways with the way of life, the ethic that Jesus gave us, that's not supposed to shift with circumstance because Jesus also pitched us integrity. And they saw things that they didn't believe matched the Jesus we proclaimed and the scripture that we proclaimed. And it was a gut punch, and they don't know what to do with it. There are other people whose election went just like they thought it was going to go. But somehow at the end of it, somehow when it got their result, and I'm surely you've noticed this, they weren't yelling victory. They weren't taking a victory lap. It went anywhere. It's really kind of thrown me, like everybody's reaction. It's really kind of thrown me, but it's like this malaise, and I don't know how much of it is they got through it, the fog of war cleared, and they noticed some stuff they didn't notice before, or maybe they're still fine with the vote itself, but they realize the damage that's been caused in their relationships with other people that they love. And they're left not really understanding that. And they want to say, gosh, we love each other. We have all this history together. You know who I am. Are we really going to let politics divide us? To which they're increasingly getting the answer, yes. So we're in a hard place, and it is hard to figure out no matter where you are in it. And so I'm kind of glad that I have planned to do this, because I think what we're talking about actually matters even in that, maybe matters especially in that, if we are ever going to find our way out of this. If we're ever going to find our way into a place where we can even see each other again, where we can interpret the world in a way that moves the world in a positive direction. Because I don't care how excited you are about who won. We're not in a great place as a society for a number of reasons, and we've got to find a way back. If we have a message that God wants to give to the rest of the world, we've got to figure out how we can have a voice that people want to hear again. And it depends very heavily on our integrity and character to be able to do that. And we're frankly going to have to do some damage control. We're frankly going to have to swallow our pride a good bit. Because that stuff that I say about if you're going to be involved in a political party, your job as a follower of Jesus is to recognize your highest allegiance is to Christ. So you look at that party, whichever one it is, and you say yes to this, yes to this, yes to this. This aligns with the kingdom of God. Yes to this. I want to be about that. We have shared goals. But where there is something outside of that, where there is something that is wrong or immoral, or that because of your faith you disagree with it, you are not the people that look the other way. You are not the people that justify it. You are the people who are self-critical, where you say yes, 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 but absolutely not in the name of Jesus. And the degree to which we don't do that is the degree that we show we have a higher allegiance than the one we claim. The degree to which we don't do that is the degree to which we sell out our integrity for our point, because people aren't stupid, even though we talk about them like they are. They see the discrepancies. And what we wind up making ourselves look like, what we wind up making ourselves function like, is a con man's shill. Is a handy voting block of yes men. God forgive us, because Jesus called us to integrity. God forgive us every time, on whatever side of a line, we betrayed the way of life Jesus called us to, which is not just about staying out of trouble. It's a way of being human in the world as grace and gift, not dependent on the other people. People who so believe that God will make good on his promises that we live the way of Jesus even when, and maybe especially when, other people aren't. That we stand up for the human rights of people who were also made in the image of God, whether they recognize it or not, because we actually believe in the good, and we're not trying to put people in their place or force them to do something. We're trying to live in such a compelling way and invite them into such a compelling story that they say yes to that because they chose it. Because that's the only way that that behavior and faith matters in the first place. So, into that world, I want to speak to gratitude as a way of being. Into that world, I want to speak to the lens of gratitude that's going to affect how we are in the world and how we interpret other people and the world and God himself. So let's go. Dr. Emmons, I just told you about, he says this. The practice of gratitude is readily accessible, available to everyone. You're never too old, too young, too rich, too poor to live gratefully. We can produce gratitude in any season of life. This is part of its appeal. As we create gratitude, a positive ripple effect is generated through every area of our lives, potentially satisfying some of our deepest yearnings, our desire for happiness, our pursuit of better relationships, and our ceaseless quest for inner peace, health, wholeness, and contentment. Yet the grateful state of mind, as accessible as it is, can be fleeting, difficult to sustain over the long haul unless practiced with attention and intention. So we need to immerse ourselves in practices and techniques that will foster gratitude every day. And that's from Robert Emmons from his book, The Little Book of Gratitude. I like The Little Book of Gratitude because it's such a short, easy way to get into his research. It's very, very accessible. There are much longer, more academic books you can read. This is a great intro. As a matter of fact, is there anybody, this is real, I'm not feigning this is real crowd participation here. Is there anybody who would tell me something over the past week that you thought about and you said, you know what, I'm grateful for this, and go ahead and include whatever person you were grateful to. You don't have to use a name, but you can. But is there anybody that would just share with the group right now something, just anything from the past week that you were grateful for, and kind of how that experience was for you? Real quick, anybody? You there with the answer? We know the value of hot showers, my friend. We did not make them use dirty towels. That's just the kind of people we are. She didn't even use our towels. She brought her own towel. Now to be clear, right, she couldn't wash them in our house. She washed towels at our house. Now, here's the thing. I need you to know that I did not set that up. But if anybody else wants to say something nice about me, I will give you the time. No, I actually want to say, congratulations, Tolly Childs, for volunteering. You won your own copy of the Little Book of Gratitude. So everybody, give Tolly a hand. Man, now you got to be grateful to me again. Let's go. If you want to follow along in the YouVersion Bible app, we're going to clip through this pretty quick, but in our sermon notes, you can open the YouVersion Bible app on your phone, tablet, or whatever magical thing you have. You click on events in the menu. You click on North Augusta Church. Those are our notes. You can follow them. Philippians chapter 4, starting in verse 4. And I'm going to cut off verse 6 because the numbers were just inserted by some monk, and I want to stop there for now. Philippians chapter 4, to the Philippian church, Paul says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything." Now, if that was all Paul wrote, he starts by saying, "Rejoice in the Lord always." Well, Paul, that's kind of hard to do sometimes. I mean, I know he's in charge, but bad stuff happens, and it could be we could go into election stuff. I don't actually want to go into it anymore today. Or you could say, there's this thing in my family. I don't have anything to do with that, but it's a real problem. It's really bothering me. There's this situation over here with somebody I care about, somebody I love. There's a situation that I'm in that feels unfair. And God, while I'm asking you for help, rejoicing in you is not the first thing that's coming up. And Paul goes, all right, I hear you. I will say it again, rejoice. Okay, well, if you said it again, okay, maybe there's something after that helps. Let your gentleness be evident to all. Okay, it's easy to let your gentleness be evident to like preschoolers, small puppies, people who genuinely agree with you, people who stand up and say nice things about you when you weren't even going for that. It's really easy to be gentle with them. Are there other people that it's difficult to be gentle with? Not a trick question. I've met people. Yes, you've met people too. People require lots of things: patience, understanding, patience, love. Did I mention patience? So I'm supposed to rejoice in the Lord all the times. And he means it so much that he says it again. Then I'm supposed to let my gentleness be evident to all. You got anything to help me out, like a toolkit, some steps? Because these aren't natural. These aren't flip a switch kind of things, right? Oh, yeah, and do not be anxious about anything. Thanks. See, I thought I was supposed to be anxious. But now that you've reminded me not to, then I can stop doing that. What would I have done without you, right? Now I know you're thinking, that's the Bible. What are you doing, man? Well, I also believe in context. There is something that's going to make sense out of this. You would agree that that's a better way to live. He was like, man, if I could be in a state where I could rejoice always, even in the dark times, even though, what are we seeing? You give and take away. Blessed be your name in the land marked with suffering. We love that song. Because it points to something that we want, but it's also something that feels elusive. I would love it if I could let my gentleness be evident to all, because a lot of times, well, listen to the way it plays in movies, in your life, when you just get overwhelmed with emotion and it just blows on somebody, there's a lot of guilt and shame that comes after that, isn't there? Even if you thought you were right. Because you feel like you weren't yourself, like you lost yourself in it. And do not be anxious about anything, man. What you got? You got like a pill, a program? What you got? We'll sign up for it. Because we are very anxious. It's like it's in our DNA now. We've been conditioned to be anxious. So what do you got for us, Paul? That's a tall order. We would like it. But it's not as easy as just obeying a command. Pick up in second part of verse 6. But, meaning instead of that, in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Jesus Christ. So, in every situation, and the word in Greek that is translated every means every, all of them. In every situation, by prayer and petition. Now note the distinction there. There's prayer. I know the ladies actually talked about prayer a lot yesterday in their ladies event. And you know that part of that is petition. I think in the ACTS acronym it's supplication, but it's petition. It's asking God for things. Here, he actually makes a distinction and says prayer and petition. And in some ways, I think he's saying, look, if you have a relationship with this God and you believe this God has a relationship with you, you believe this God cares about you and the world that we find ourselves in, then asking questions of that God, asking him to help while respecting his wisdom is above ours, is an appropriate thing to do. But just asking the questions does not get you there. Just asking for stuff does not get you there. He's not a genie. So he says it like this: by prayer and petition with thanksgiving. And again, like the passage we looked at last week, that almost seems shoehorned in. Almost feels like he forgot, and they're like, oh yeah, and thanksgiving, except for I don't think that's what it is. With prayer, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. It is one thing, and I'm not even knocking this. It is one thing to be overwhelmed with anxiety that something's going on and shooting up like a flare gun prayer. You got nothing else to say. Bible teaches in Romans that the Holy Spirit takes up residence in your heart, searches your heart, provides the prayer for you when you can't. A prominent distinction between the God of the Bible and other competing God stories at the time. They're looking to be appeased. God will provide the prayer to himself. It's one thing to shoot up those flare gun prayers, though. It's another thing entirely to go through and thank God for the ways that he showed up in your life before. and to go back and even thank God for the ways that he showed up in human history that we've seen and identified. And then in the context of all the ways that God has come through, frequently in unexpected ways, to raise our prayer, our petitions and questions and requests to God. Because now that's in a context of gratefulness. It's a different question. It could be the same words. It's a different question. It's a different ask when it's in the context of reminders about all the ways our living and active God has shown up. You're not just shooting off a shot in the dark. You're talking about the God who has been good, the God who does not change in this sense, that he is good and that all good things are blessing coming from the Father of heavenly lights that does not change like shifting shadows. It's really different when you're asking a question to a God with that character than you're just shooting something up to somebody who's really powerful and maybe we'll get his attention. Also from the Little Book of Gratitude by Robert Emmons, he says this: our language reflects our thoughts, and our thoughts partially create our reality. Grateful people freely use words such as gifts, givers, blessings, blessed, fortune, fortunate, and abundance. Less grateful people are preoccupied with burdens, curses, deprivations, and complaints. The language of gratitude draws our attention to the positive contributions that others have made to our lives. It is possible to shift self-defeating talk to an internal dialogue cloaked in thankfulness. Grateful people are masters at turning their minds to the ways in which they're supported and sustained. Once you start to notice kindness, listen to this, more good actually begins to come your way. I've told you before, I will tell you again 1,000 times as long as we know each other. What you look for in this world, you will find. And if you develop the practice, and it will take practices, it will take you doing things that are not natural to form you in a different way, to establish habits that are positive and healthy, both physically and spiritually and mentally. But you have to actually take the action. It doesn't happen from agreeing with me. It doesn't happen from flipping a switch. You have to step outside of the things you normally do and do things that will foster this. This is the way that God molds us, the God who operates by invitation, not coercion, the God who says, I want to make you into the image of my Son, but I will not force you to be that because that would be meaningless unless you choose, unless you decide. Unless you put yourself in the position, because otherwise we're all idolaters. And we make a God out of our thoughts about God that sure does look like a bigger, better version than us, of us. Again, Anne Lamott says, and I think she's right, you can always tell that you've recreated God in your own image when it turns out God hates all the same people you do. When you put on this lens, number one, if nothing in your life changed, you would still perceive a better life. You would still see more accurately. I'll say more on that later. But the research actually says that when you start to notice this, and deeper in the research it says it actually affects your behavior. People who practice gratitude act in different ways than people who don't, toward other people. But when you do this, according to the research, more good and more kindness actually starts coming your way. It's not just that you notice it more, which I think would be enough. Like, I would sign up for that. But it's that more actually starts happening and taking place in your life. For the life of me at this point, I do not know why people would choose not to do this. I'm talking 10 minutes a day, guys. Sure, it might delay the Netflix show that you're on your third watch of for a little bit, but you can go to bed 10 minutes later. If that's the choice. I don't know why people wouldn't do it. It's baffling to me. There are only benefits. It is only win. And the difference between you having this in your life and you not having this in your life is you deciding not to have it because you decide not to do it. Or you don't make a decision, you'll get to it, and life keeps happening the way life keeps happening. You keep getting sort of more miserable. And your brain does a good job of hiding from you the fact that, well, you didn't do any of this stuff. Why would you expect any of this stuff to be there? Turn to Philippians chapter, you don't have to turn anywhere, it's the next passage. Philippians chapter 4, starting in verse 8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. Now, notice the connection in this passage, and frankly in the one that we read before it, between thankfulness or gratitude and peace or having the peace of God. Paul ties it real cleanly together a whole lot. He's nothing if not repetitive, but his repetition is on purpose because he wants to drive home a point. The thought he wants to leave them with is, look, whatever is, let me get all the words, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. This is a choice that he is asking us to make. When we go into the world, when we live our lives, look for, put on a lens that highlights whatever is true, whatever is good. Gotta get my words right. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy. Especially when you get to like the admirable, we're talking about in other people, in the world and in other people. You say, wait, is he telling us to just be some kind of Pollyanna optimist that just sticks their head in the sand and ignores everything bad? No. I mean, I know that because Paul wrote other stuff, and it's very clear. But that's not it at all. You see, here's the thing. What you look for, you will find. And if you're looking for these things to be there, you're going to find them. If you're looking at other people's lives to find them, you're going to find them. Are they going to line up completely with you? No. But I'm really convinced that a better metaphor even for bringing the gospel to people isn't like, well, we've got a supply of the gospel here, so if you would scoop it up, get it in a bag, take it out, and you can give the gospel to other people. I mean, I think that's been our model for a while. I'm not convinced that a better model wouldn't be a tour guide where we're going around and showing the people the God that's already there that they didn't recognize or see. That we show them where God showed up even though they weren't looking for him. Where we show them how God's been pursuing them, how God's cared about them even if they weren't recognizing it. Where God's active in the world even if they didn't have that explanation. Oh, by the way, do you know how they train people in the government to identify counterfeit money? You might think that they have an extensive department where they're looking at all the ways that people have counterfeited money so that they can have a huge knowledge base of that so they can identify the things that counterfeiters do. That is not what happens. You can look this up. People who investigate counterfeits spend a whole lot of time studying the real thing. Because when you know the real thing from inside and out, when you know the real thing right and left, a fake really stands out. If you focus on whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is good, whatever is pure, if you do this, then things that aren't in line with that are going to pop out. You will see them. You might see them more clearly. But you'll also be better equipped to deal with them and to know who you're supposed to be in the world and see where God is in the situation because it's all cloaked in this thankfulness. The thankfulness isn't just about, here's something I do that makes me feel better. It will. It's not just, well, God really wants us to thank him, so I guess I got to check that off my list. It is reminding yourself of the story that you find yourself in and the kind of God that we have. It is reminding yourself of the God who has shown up for the world that he so loves, the people that he made in his own image over and over and over and over again. And you're somebody whose heart is broken about this thing in front of you, raising your voice to God. And the strong implication of all that gratefulness is that this is a God who cares and shows up. He's not granting my wishes, but he cares about the stuff that's breaking my heart. He cares about things that are wrong in the world. And he's taken this story somewhere. Oh, and there's this. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. This stuff isn't all that good if it's just information that you agree with, could pass a test on. This is supposed to be embodied. You're supposed to live it out. And then he says this, and this may get by you because it's such a little sentence at the end. And the God of peace will be with you. Now, why do you put that on the end with an and like that? Because it's the result of doing those things. You want to know how you get God's peace? The Bible actually spells it out for you. You cultivate gratitude in your heart because a person who knows that God has shown up, that God gets to get what he wants in the end. The person who believes that God actually cares about us and has been active in our own lives and in the history of the world because he cares about people, he cares about where the thing goes, well, those people have peace that people who haven't spent their lives marinating in that can't. I almost said don't, but the answer is can't. If you haven't been cultivating gratitude, there is no surprise at all in the fact that you're having trouble having peace. It is a prescription in the Bible. Dr. Emmons says this. Across the board, the grateful mind reaps a massive advantage. As we have seen, the results of rigorously conducted studies have given us a glimpse of what life can look like when a person is gripped by gratitude. However, to experience the sustainable benefits of practicing gratitude, we must become habitually aware of gratitude-inspiring events and circumstances and then declare and share those with others. Tali, I am so thankful that you are willing to stand up in this room and say that in front of everybody else. That's incredibly valuable. We should be able to have these conversations with each other. We should be intentionally having these conversations with each other without a guy in the microphone telling us to do it. You understand? One of the things that we should be doing as we gather, the reason that the Bible gives for gathering together is this. The only explanation you were ever given besides the information that they did this as an example. To spur one another on toward love and good works. Part of encouraging each other, part of stirring one another on toward love and good works is this. Man, I got to tell you, I need to tell you how God showed up. I need to tell you the anxiety that I was in, how lost I was, how I didn't understand what was going on, how I couldn't connect the dots. And I never saw this coming. I mean, I knew that God loved me, but God showed up like this. And this is how it's different. And your whole problem may not be solved, but you're different. And then they can come in and they can say, you know what, I've been struggling with some stuff too, but I remember a time like that. This was going on, I didn't know what to do, and God showed up like this. And for both people in that interaction, they both leave encouraged because they both reminded each other about the God who loves us and who is living and active and hasn't given up on his dream for the world or us. Do you see how all of this embeds us in the story we find ourselves in? Do you see how all of this gives us our motivation, gives us our way of being in the world, makes things that are difficult for us to do by willpower alone natural? But you got to do the work. I'm going to remind you about the challenge now, really quickly. We are doing a challenge. I did print out some booklets in the back. I'm also sending stuff out every day, except for this past Tuesday when I forgot, but I caught you up. But we also have the full booklet that you can download if you want to do it. Nobody's checking this. You don't turn it in. It's for you. You decide if you're going to do it or not. I will say own your choices. If you decide not to do it, that's fine. It's sure you don't have to do anything I say. I'm recommending that you do, but if you Own that. If you choose that, own the choice and understand that you won't have these benefits because that's how they get there. You chose not to have those benefits. You chose not to affect your life in this way because the way we're doing it is going so well. It's 21 days of practices. They're guided practices. We give you instruction. They're roughly 10 minutes a day. 7 practices, 1 a day, and you rotate through them for 3 weeks. You will not probably connect with every one of these practices, but you won't even know that until you do them. My goal is that at the end of this, you'll see the benefit of practicing gratitude in your life, how it affects your life and relationships, and you'll find a few of them that resonate with you strongly enough that you will incorporate them in your life after that without having to have a booklet or anything. Does that make sense? So that's why you go through all of them. And I don't mind if after you've done the first week or whatever, if you look and you say, you know, that one, I'm not really vibing with that one, but I really vibed with this one, and you start replacing them, totally cool with it. If you say, that one didn't really work for me, fine, drop it. Incorporate one of the ones that did. I was talking to Robert Emmons about doing this. If you want to find him on Facebook, he goes by Bob. I was talking to him over email about doing this with the church after we had been doing it for a while. And he responded to this because he had something that he thought was important for churches to understand. He said, I think it's very important to distinguish being grateful for something versus being grateful to someone. For example, when you ask people what they are grateful for, and this question tends to elicit all sorts of pleasurable responses. This may elevate your happiness temporarily, but I don't think their sense of gratefulness. In my mind, what makes gratitude is that it involves a gift, giver, and receiver, or a benefactor, benefit, and beneficiary. The benefactor intends to do something that improves the life of the beneficiary by making their concern his concern. You just don't have this 3-part sequence when you are grateful for something apart from the agent who did the giving. The coffee, for example, doesn't intend to wake me up, make me think more clearly, energize me, etc., no matter how much I might delight in it. I might be grateful to my wife who brings me the coffee in bed, and then he said, yes, she does, and yes, I am. Or to the barista who knows my name and how I like my lattes, they do, but not to the coffee itself. I know you know all this, but it bears mentioning, and that's why there are so many ways to cultivate gratitude, tweaking the attentional focus as I do in the different sets of instructions. You can't be grateful just that a thing is in your life and good. Gratitude requires that you recognize a giver, a benefactor, and recognize their choice that they chose to bring good into your life that they did not have to do. Now, sometimes that benefactor is God. Sometimes it is in prayer to God that you're grateful. I think that's powerful, but it also recognizes the human agents who God may have used to bring those things in. People who made choices they didn't have to make to benefit you, to bring good in. It doesn't mean they're perfect. It doesn't mean that you agree with them on everything. It doesn't mean that you agree with every one of their actions, but this was good they chose to do. And the only way that you can be grateful, and not just, man, I'm awesome because good things happen to me. The only way that you can be grateful is to recognize the giver and recognize the choice that they made. Otherwise, no matter what nice things you say about the thing that happened, it ain't gratitude, and it doesn't have those benefits in your life. I mentioned this before, so I won't spend much time on it, and then we'll finish up. But I always go back when I'm looking at this stuff. It's so impressed on me, the research that John Gottman, in my mind, the best marriage expert in the country right now, and everybody who I know is really good at it uses his stuff. He and his wife work on it together, which is a good sign. But I remember an interview, and I mentioned this last week, but it's really relevant to this, where the interviewer actually asked him, what's one thing you can do in 15 minutes? One step that people could take that will instantly improve their relationships. And I remember reading this at the time, and I was trying to apply it to marriage, but it occurred to me how it applied everywhere. He said, that's easy. The one thing you can do to improve your marriage immediately, your relationship immediately, is this. Keep scanning your environment and your partner in particular for the ways that they're getting things right and the good things that they're doing. He says, if you develop this grateful lens, and he doesn't use my language, but it's what you look for, you will find. And the stunning statistic associated with it, and maybe you're not so stunned because I say it a lot, the person who develops a critical eye toward their partner, and I think towards anything in life, misses, does not register in the first place 50% of the good things that a third-party observer would see happening to them, would register this is a good thing coming your way. They just don't even register it. It's good that is happening that they never process. They never account for it. It doesn't enter the equation for them. But a person who develops the grateful eye, who's looking for the things that are good, looking for the things that are getting right, it's not that they miss the bad things, by the way. They see them quite accurately. But that's the point. They see them quite accurately in the context of gratitude, in the context of the good things about this person. Now, sometimes that equation goes the other way, sure. But wouldn't you want to see things more accurately? Because that's the shocking thing Gottman says. He says this grateful way of living, this grateful lens is actually a more accurate way to view reality. Why in the world will we choose the negative and destructive lie? Let's finish up. Dr. Emmons says this: to have a momentary experience of gratitude is not the same as having a well-honed grateful disposition. People who are disposed toward gratitude are more apt to notice what is going right in their lives, seeing the role that others play in these good things, and expressing gratitude toward others in words or deeds. They are prone to not taking things for granted. They have developed the skills of noticing, appreciating, and communicating. Let me tell you a truth, an immutable truth. It is absolutely humanly impossible to feel entitled and grateful at the same time. And if the voices that we're listening to are making us critical of everybody else, pointing out everything that's wrong, if that's what's coming in, if that's the propaganda stream we've signed ourselves up for, we get to choose our own flavor of propaganda in America. But if that's the one that's going to form you. It is ridiculous to think. I will not fully get on the soapbox, but I will put my toe on it. It is ridiculous to think that you have 24-hour news going all day long in your house and you listen to talk radio in the car. You come in here for an hour or hour and a half a week and think that that's not forming you more than this. That is an insane assumption. You have to build these practices into your life, these formative practices to make us the kind of people that God calls us to be. The kind of people that God reminds us over and over and over again in the Bible who are called to things like hope. Who are supposed to lift even our prayers and petitions in times of sorrow, lift those prayers and petitions with gratitude, not because God wants to be buttered up, but because we need to understand reality. The reality into which we are asking the questions. If we want to be able to navigate these confusing, turbulent, difficult, divisive times, I'm going to tell you, you got to start here. It's the only way you're going to be able to see clearly. Until then, we're going to get hooked by whatever on any side of anything stokes our fears and anger because we like getting worked up and we get the dopamine hit from that. It's a lot more exciting than being kind. But it's not a better way to live. It's not a better life. It's not better for the people you love in your life. And it's not better for your relationship with God. It is trackably destructive to all of those things. And it will make you feel self-righteous all the way down. The crazy thing is you can choose that or you can choose this. Or you can not choose anything and you've chosen that. I believe that this world desperately needs to see people who are grateful and because of that are full of hope, who are generous because they're grateful, who are hopeful because they're grateful, who are loving because they're grateful, and they recognize the story that we find ourselves in. I think the world, I think this town, this community could be different if just the people in this room, I know I say this a lot, but it is true. If just the people in this room walked out this morning choosing to move in this direction, choosing to do these things and cultivate this in ourselves, then our worlds start getting exponentially better. And as people start talking to you saying, gosh, how are you navigating this? Because I know you're not just shutting your eyes to stuff. This is a hard time. How are you able to be this way in the world? Then you get to say, let me tell you about gratitude. You tell them all this cool stuff. And it's not just information because it's stuff you tried and stuff you had the experience of. You're tired of debating people? You know what people can't debate with? Your story. You can debate with your points all day long. I can agree with you and debate with your points all day long. It's not hard, it's kind of fun. And I'm just okay at it. You met Dick Murphy? That man's like ninja level. I want you to, because you follow the way of Jesus, be the grateful people in the world because you want something that people will take notice of, you want something that people want to talk about. That's it. And it's only available to us if we decide to cultivate it, if we decide to put ourselves in the position where God can mold us. Or we can stubbornly stay where we are, but why in God's name would we want to? So, may you cultivate the kind of gratitude in your life that makes you able to rejoice always. May your gentleness be evident to all. May thankfulness act like an antidote to the poison of anxiety. May the requests you make of God be saturated in thanksgiving. May the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. May you train your eyes and hearts to constantly search for anything that is excellent or praiseworthy. May you learn how to dwell on whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, and whatever is admirable. And may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. And the church said together, amen.